Hey now, Brawlers, it's time for another Board Game Brawl review with Nick Minahan, sponsored by BoardGameBliss.com.
Today we're going to take a look at the worst game ever from Guerrilla Games. That's not my description of the game, that is the name of the game. Of course, this is all tongue-in-cheek, as the rules describe, and something I saw online described. They had this idea, the company had this idea to put together all these different elements that gamers are known to hate, like player elimination and losing turns, and take that elements, things like this, put them all together into the same game and see how long it takes for people to want to murder each other at the table. Now, they sort of came to the realization as they were playing the game, supposedly, that the game was actually fun and a good time for everyone at the table. Mechanically speaking, this is just a game of elimination. You're playing cards and rolling dice, trying to take away all the other players' little poker chips that they have in front of them. If you're the last person with chips left standing, then you win the game, unless some other random card has made some other kind of win condition. It's only slightly more complicated than what I described, so let's go ahead and take a look at how the game is played. Then we're going to come back. I'll let you know what I think.
Alright, I'm going to try to do this all in one take because I really don't want to waste this much time on this game. The worst game ever is a competitive game for 2 or more players. I guess you can play with as many players as you want. You're only limited by the number of tokens that you have. You really shouldn't inflict this much pain on that many people. The goal of the game is to eliminate the other players at the table by making them get rid of all of their tokens. Either you take all of them, or just through fate and circumstance, they lose all of the tokens that they have in front of them. Everyone starts off with 12. You'll have some more left over. And then during the course of the game, you're going to make a kitty of coins that tokens that you ante during the course of the game. So here's how the basic turns are going to work. You're at the start of the game, you're going to have your 12 tokens. You're going to have 4 cards from the main deck. You have this big die here. When it's your turn, you'll decide who's going to go first, and you ante 1 coin, or one. I'll just call them coins. You ante 1 coin into the kitty. Then you draw a card from the deck and decide who you're going to attack. There's no theme to this game. You're just attacking someone. So you say, well, I want to take your tokens, random player over there. So first you declare a number. You can declare anything from 1 to 6. When you roll the die, you need to get that number or higher, and then you get to take that many coins. So let's say, oh, 4 is the number I want. And then, oh, look at that, I rolled a 6. So I get to take 4 coins from you. Not 6, but I declared 4, so that's how many I get to take. I'll take those from you, and I am one step closer towards defeating you and removing all of your coins. And that's the game. That's the whole mechanism of the game. That is it. Now, of course, you have these cards that you'll have that you can play at any time. The rules will tell you when you can play it, and some of them are just play, and they stay in play, and they will, of course, break the rules of the game. Let's take a look at these, just a few of these oh-so-fun cards right now. So, with all the beautiful artwork that is contained therein. So you have the cards like this. It's a secret card that stays in play face down. This card does nothing unless somebody looks at it or forces it to be discarded. If so, they must pay you 3 tokens. Oh, wow. You have Dice Whining. Play when another player complains about their die roll. Take as many tokens from that player as the number of pips on the die. Great. Theme stays in play. This card has no effect. Pirates, ninjas, cowboys, who cares? Exactly, right? Who needs theme? Mooching. Play when another player consumes a snack or beverage they didn't pay for themselves. That player must give you and the provider 2 tokens each. Are you laughing yet? These are hilarious. Memory is probably the most interesting card in the game. I will admit, everybody else plays with their hand cards face down in front of them. They look at cards as they draw them, but then they put them face down. Cards play as normal. If they ever try to play a card that doesn't make any sense because they don't remember what it is, then they have to just discard it. Seat Changer. Rearrange the seating order however you like. Wow, so much fun. Roles Lawyering. They disregard any one sentence on any card until the end of this turn or destroy any card in play. Hopeless Position. Play face up in front of a seat. The player in that seat cannot win. That's some good strategy right there. Oh, here's my personal favorite because it just shows that the designers of the game have a huge grudge and a big chip on their shoulder. Internet Discounters. Play when somebody would collect from the kitty. Remove the kitty from the game instead of a player collecting it. And then the flavor text is the best. Who cares what happens to the gaming industry? I just want my cheap games. Now, why on earth would they think that? Oh, probably because they have some sort of connection to this game store from Canada. Blatant corporate sponsorship. Whenever a player mentions the name of a game store, they must pay you a token that that game store, unless that game store is Game Night Games and cool stuff. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that's rampant throughout this game. And of course, you would never say a game after in the name of a game store after you see that card in play, just like you wouldn't do so many other things in this game, hopefully including not playing it. Let's just get to my final thoughts.
Playing the worst game ever really reminded me of We Didn't Play Test This at All, another joke parody game that sort of poked fun at all the tropes of modern board gaming. And there are some other similarities. I mean, they both have a premise that wears thin very, very quickly, and what you're left with is a very unfun game that you'll just stick on the shelf and never want to play again, or get rid of as soon as you can onto some other poor sucker. The big difference between them, though, is that We Didn't Play Test This at All can be over very, very quick. You start playing a game, it could be over in minutes, could be over in seconds, depending on the cards that are played. Literally, you could draw a card and say, the game is over. Okay? So at least you have a chuckle, and then it's over, you move on to something else. Worst game ever can just drag on and on interminably, which makes it far, far worse. But it is the good news here. The worst game ever is not actually the worst game ever. See, if it was the worst game ever, this review would actually be kind of positive, in the regard that I would say, wow, this is the worst game I've ever played. You gotta try this. You gotta run out and get it, because it's gonna be like this little heirloom that you have. It's gonna be able to sit on your shelf, and it'll be so cool to have it and show it off to people. But I wouldn't even recommend it for that, because it is just below mediocre into bad. And the fact that they're going to trick so many people into picking up the game because of its title is what really aggravates me about it. And I do feel in a way that they just did this in order to trick people into buying it, especially reviewers, in the sense that, think about the Cards Against Humanity promotion they did this past Christmas, the bullshit promotion, where they advertise on their site on I don't know if it was Christmas Day or New Year's or something like that, is for $10 or $20, you can buy a box of bullshit with like a cute little graphic on it. And people were like, oh yeah, it's probably not actually that. It's probably some promo cards. And Cards Against Humanity promo cards are really hard to get, so we got to pick that up. And a ton of people bought it. They sold out of whatever, however much of it they had. And then people got the items in the mail and was like, oh, it's actually bullshit. And Cards Against Humanity was like, well, yeah. That's what we told you that it was. That's what we sent you. What did you expect? That was sort of the meta joke there. And I feel like that's what they were trying to do with this game over there at Guerrilla Games. Release a game that was really bad, not fun, not funny, not really amusing at all. And then when people complain about it, say, well, we told you it's the worst game ever. Except that it's not. It's just a mediocre piece of garbage in a box. I know. I'm being very, very harsh. But really, they tried so hard. There's so much forced humor in this game that it just turns out to be very, very annoying. First off, it looks hideous. Artwork and graphics, I mean, the box is probably the best looking thing about it. I kind of like the design and graphic art on the box, but the cards themselves that you'll be looking at most of the time look like garbage. They're terrible. The font, the design, it looks like a card game from the early 80s, which I guess all of that might be another part of the joke, you know, that there's another thing that gamers hate, terrible looking artwork. But come on, if you want people to pick up this game just as sort of a gag gift, why not at least make it look good? That might be at least a little something to incentivize people, or to make people feel not as bad for having wasted $6 or $10 or however much this crap costs. So you would at least have that, but instead it looks terrible. They use pictures from their other bad games in the game, which is like a total cardinal sin. Even if they had used pictures, gotten permission to use pictures of other people's games and other companies' games, that would be still cheesy, but using your own games, come on, just as like an advertisement. One of the cards just has a picture of some game store that I guess the designers and the publishers frequent, so that's fun? That's really funny, I guess? Sure, why not? I suppose it's funny to them, and that's all that matters. And as far as the gameplay itself, again, the joke is there's all these really bad elements and mechanics that are going together that gamers hate, and let's see how long it takes for people to just be tearing their hair out. Except that it actually feels like its own unique kind of game, which might be a monumental feat. It might be, oh wow, it kind of rose above its constituent parts and became its own unique game. But the unique game that it is really not fun. It's just weird, and I wanted it over with almost as soon as I started playing. Like, I ante a chip, draw a card, declare a number, roll a die. And oh yeah, if you do something wacky like look at your phone or eat a potato chip, I get to play this card. And the worst part about the game is if you get stuck with a hand of cards where you don't get to do anything with them. That is the only reason this game, it's the only saving grace of this game, is if you get to do something funny like sing or, you know, make some sort of weird gesture based on some of the cards that you played with the other people at the table, or change seats, something like that. It hardly ever comes up. It's so rare that it even happens. And sometimes you get a card and you're like, well, this is literally never going to happen. It will never happen. And it's just going to sit in your hand. Isn't the game supposed to be sort of jokey and fun? I mean, if these things don't happen, then what is the point? Like I said, this isn't the worst game ever. If it was, it might be an interesting thing to have. It's just boring. It's just really boring. And that is the worst possible thing that a game could be. Well, okay then, I guess maybe it is one of the worst games ever. But I'm never going to think about this in the future and say, oh, I remember that game that was just so awful. I'm just going to think of it as a bad game. So it's not even notable in that regard. I don't know. I've rambled on enough about it as it is. Avoid this game. Don't even bother with it as a gag gift. It's just not even worth the time, and it's not worth supporting them and giving them their money for this garbage.
Thanks for watching. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. And make sure to check out our sponsor, Board Game Bliss, where you can find an amazing selection of games from around the world. BoardGameBliss.com. Thanks for your support.